This is Jacob's Algebra, Chapter 13, Lesson 8, the discriminant. So this lesson uses the discriminant of the quadratic formula to determine how many solutions an equation has. Now, the graph of every quadratic equation is a parabola, just like the graph for every linear equation is a line. Now, remember our quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this is when we have our equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So this is our standard form of the equation. When the equation is in this form, then whatever number is in front of the x squared is our a, whatever number is in front of our x is b, and then our constant is c. So we plug those values into this formula and we can determine what the values of x are. This value here underneath the square root is called the discriminant. That is b squared minus 4ac. That particular value is called the discriminant. And based on what that discriminant is, we can determine how many solutions our equation is going to have. If b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then there is one solution. If b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, we have no solutions. And the reason that we have no solutions when b squared minus 4ac is less than 0 is because then we're trying to take the square root of a negative number. In Algebra 1, we don't take the square root of a negative number. We say in that case that we have no solutions. In Algebra 2, you will learn how to do this when you have negative numbers under the square root. But in Algebra 1, we say that it has no solution. And then the other value, we have b squared minus 4ac equals 0, gives us one solution. b squared minus 4ac equals 0, is less than 0, means there's no solution. And then if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, then we have two solutions. So based on our discriminant, before even bothering to calculate what x equals, we can determine how many solutions our equation has. So let's start off by doing some of the sample problems. So let's look at number 4. For number 4, it says find the value of the discriminant for each of the following equations and use it to tell how many solutions the equation has. Remember, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So for part A, we have x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Remember, our discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. Our b is 4. When we square that, we have 16. And then we do minus 4 times our a times our c. Our a is the number in front of x squared. Since there's nothing there, it's understood to be 1. And then our c is the 3 here at the end. So the math problem we need to do is 16 minus 12. That equals 4. Since the discriminant is positive, that means that we have two solutions. So two solutions is the answer for part A. Now looking at part B, we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. So again, our b is 4, and when we square 4, we get 16, minus 4 times a times c. Our a is 1. This time our c is 4. So what we have here is 16 minus 16, and that's 0. Since our b squared equals 0, that means that we have one solution. Okay, now let's look at part C. Part C is x squared plus 4x plus 6 equals 0. We square our b, which is 4, and when we square 4, we get 16, minus 4, and then parentheses for our a and for our c. Our a is 1, our c is 6. 16 minus 24 is going to be a negative 8. We can't take the square root of negative 8, so we say there are no solutions. So we have our equation in standard form. When you calculate b squared minus 4ac, if it's equal to 0, then we have one solution. If it's greater than 0, we have two solutions. If it's less than 0, we have no solutions. Okay, so that was number 4, which is just like number 11 that I assigned for homework. Now let's look at number 5. Number 5 uses those exact same equations. Number 5 says graph the following functions, each on a separate pair of axes. That's for parts A, B, and C. Now, in order to graph the functions, what you need to do first is come up with a table of values. For your equivalent problem, which is number 12, I have given you the values to use for x so that you will be able to see what you're supposed to see in the graph. So I'm just going to do this for one of the equations. We have x. Let me go ahead and do a grid here. And then our equation for part A is y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. So if as I plug in different values for x, I will get different values for y. If x is -5, we have -5 squared is 25. Plus 4 times a -5, that means minus 20. And then plus 3. 25 minus 20 plus 3 is 8. We do this for a bunch of different values of x. I'm going to do -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, and 1. When x is -4, we end up with 3. When x is -3, we get 0. When x is -2, we get -1. When x is -1, we get 0. When x is 0, we get 3. And when x is 1, we get 8. And this is what our graph looks like. So this graph shows us the values that I showed you in this data table. Now, I'm not going to go through plotting out data tables for parts B and C. I'm just going to show you what they look like. This is the graph for equation B. And then this is the graph for equation C. So these are the 3 graphs. Now, in parts D, E, and F, it says use your graphs to find solutions to the equations. Okay, so this is the graph of y equals x squared plus 4x plus 3. When it says use your graph to find the solutions, it means find where your graph crosses the x-axis. This graph crosses the x-axis at x equals -3 and at x equals -1. And you can see in my data table, when x is -3, our y is 0. When x is -1, our y is 0. These are the values that make our equation equal to 0, so those are the solutions. Equation B is y equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. Its solution is -2. That is the only place where it touches the graph, where it touches the x-axis. Remember, our part A should have had 2 solutions, and it did. Our part B should have had 1 solution, and it did. Now we look down here at part C. Part C should have no solutions, and notice it does not cross the x-axis anywhere. It has no solutions. There is no value you can plug in for x that will make our y equal to 0. So that was number 5. It is just like number 12 that I assigned for homework. Now let's look at number 6. Number 6 uses these exact same equations. So for number 6, it says find the solutions to the quadratic equations by completing the square. So I'm just going to show you this for the first one. X squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Remember, when you're completing the square, we want our x's on one side and everything else on the other. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, and we will end up with x squared plus 4x equals -3. Now, to complete the square, I'm going to write parentheses and put a square on it. I take the square root of the first number. The square root of x squared is x. Then I take my second number. I divide it by 2. 4x divided by 2 is 2x. Then I divide it by this value. 2x divided by x is 2. And that's what I put in my parentheses. Now I need to square what's in the parentheses. X squared is x squared. 2 times x times 2 is 4x. 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to copy down the -3 that I already had. Notice I added 4 here. I didn't have a plus 4 up here, but I did add a plus 4 when I changed it to a binomial square form. That means I need to add the 4 on the other side also. Whatever I do to the left side, I have to do to the right side. So x plus 2 when we square it is equal to 1. Now I can take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root of the left side, I get x plus 2. When I take the square root of the right side, I get plus or minus 1. Remember, it's always plus or minus. So now to solve for x, I need to subtract 2 from both sides. I will get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 1. Now, what are the two values that x could be? X could be negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. Or x could be negative 2 minus 1, which is negative 3. So these are our two values for x, negative 1 and negative 3. Parts B and C are worked exactly the same way. You're going to do completing the square, which is just what we learned how to do in lesson 6. So this is number 6, which is just like number 13 that I assigned for homework. Now on this next page, what I'm going to do is show you how to solve this using the quadratic equation. And again, I'm going to use part A. So for part A, we're going to have the exact same formula, or exact same equation, x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. And this time we're going to use the quadratic equation. This is already in standard form. So the number in front of x squared is our a. There isn't a number there, so it's understood to be 1. The number in front of our x is 4, so our b is 4. And then our constant is 3, so c equals 3. Now we write out our equation. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. And all of that is over 2a. Now I'm going to plug in my numbers. Negative b. Well, since our b is 4, negative b is going to be negative 4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. Well, 4 squared is 16. Minus 4 times a times c. So I'm going to say minus 4 times 1 times 3. Well, 4 times 1 times 3 is 12. All over 2a. Our a is 1, so 2a is going to be 2. So what we end up with here is x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 12. 16 minus 12 is 4. And all of that is over 2. The square root of 4 is 2. So this is really negative 4 plus or minus 2 over 2. So what are our two values for x? Our x is negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2, divided by 2, and that's negative 1. And we also have negative 4 minus 2, which is negative 6, divided by 2, which is negative 3. Notice that this is the same answer I got last time when we worked it by completing the square. You should get the same answer both ways. If you don't get the same answer both ways, then you did something wrong at least one of the times. Okay, so that's problem number 7, which is just like problem number 14 that I assigned for homework. Remember, problem numbers 11, 12, 13, and 14 all use the exact same 3 equations. So you're not working totally different problems for each of those. They all use the same equations. I'm going to end this video here, and in the part 2 video, I'm going to go over the last problems, numbers 15, 16, and 17. So I'm going to go through problems 8, 9, and 10 in the book because 15, 16, and 17 are the ones that I assigned. So I'll go over those in the part 2 video.